Welcome to the Stop Over Drinking and Start Living podcast, where high-achieving, goal-oriented rebel women come to learn how to live a vibrant and fulfilling life without requiring alcohol to get through it. No labels, no judgments, no saying you'll never drink again. Just real proven methods to help you stop rebelling against yourself with alcohol so you can drink less and do more. I'm your host, Angela Mascenik. Let's dig in. Welcome to episode 279, Assumptions. Well, hello. Welcome back to the podcast. Boy, do I have a good one for you. I was trying to sound like a radio voice. Did you guys catch that? Boy, have I got a deal for you. How was that? Just kidding. Anyway, I had a really fun weekend in New York City with my amazing husband, Peter. He bought us a trip for Christmas, actually. I opened up a little gift and there were 2 plane tickets to New York City on Christmas. And immediately my thoughts were like, how are we going to leave the kids and the dogs in the house and everything? It's quite the undertaking for us to go away together. And usually there's some sort of complication when we try to do this. The last time we went to New York together, my husband, wanted to just do one overnight. Just go up there for one night, 24 hours away. Simple enough. Well, there was a family emergency while we were there and our flight got canceled home. And when that happens, for us, it's a big deal because now we have to find people to take our kids to school and to stay an extra day for, watching the dogs and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so we haven't planned anything away alone together since that, and that's been a couple of years ago. So when he presented these tickets for me for Christmas, I was hesitant, so to say. And then as it got closer, I started to get a little worried, and I didn't realize it was Mother's Day. And so he had us flying home on Mother's Day, so we changed it so I could come home Saturday night and be home for Mother's Day, which I'm really glad I did. But we had an amazing, amazing time. We actually stayed with Coach Steph. If you're brand new to the podcast, Coach Steph is a woman who works with me. She was a client back in early 2020, and then she was so amazing, and she changed her relationship with alcohol and was so supported in the group that I encouraged her to get a certification and come work for me. And so she has, and she does, and she's amazing. And she and I have become very close, and she offered up her amazing Manhattan apartment with amazing views. And so we said yes, and away we went, and we had a fantastic time. But it was really funny. There was a theme throughout this weekend, and it's called Assumptions. Ha ha ha. The name of the podcast. So we all assume lots of things, right? And if you are observing your mind in any capacity and how you think about things, you will learn that you make assumptions about people. We have judgments about people. We assume things. Even when things aren't literally said or explicitly said, we make assumptions based on other people's behavior, what we witness in the world, how we've been programmed to think about things, all sorts of stuff. And I'm going to tell you 3 stories during this podcast today on assumptions. And usually what I have found is when I assume things, and I'm wrong, it's hilarious. And I was like, it just always blows my mind about how wrong I was if I'm assuming something and it turns out I was wrong. But we make a lot of assumptions about things all the time. And we usually don't know we're wrong until it's pointed out to us, or we get in a fight with somebody, or something is misplaced or misunderstood, right? So assumptions can help us, the human mind help us in certain things. We don't have to overthink through every single detail, right? Our brain wants to be efficient. Remember our motivational triad. We want to save energy, seek pleasure, and avoid pain. So when our mind makes assumptions, it actually saves us energy and potentially avoiding pain because we're not digging into very specific details with every little decision and every little thing that we do. And yeah, so it can help us when we assume, I don't know, I'll get into it more when I tell you these stories, but think about the assumptions that you make. You assume that your car is going to start every morning, right? You assume that your alarm clock will go off. You assume that when you make a phone call, it'll go through, or when you get on your computer, it's going to start and you're going to be able to get on the internet. Like, we have all of these unconscious assumptions about how things work, how people behave, and what we expect of ourselves. We assume that, we're going to be able to, if we go out for a run, that we're going to be able to run. We assume that our body is going to work, right? And then when things happen or things go wrong, that's when it, gets painful. So these assumptions that I'm talking about today are in relation with other people, and they're funny, mostly. So the first assumption was, my husband and I were planning our New York trip, and, he wanted to eat and go to some cool, interesting restaurants and do some things. And I have discovered about myself that I don't really like fine dining anymore. I used to be into that kind of bougie, fine dining, sceney, what's the latest, trendiest spot. And anymore, I don't care about that stuff. I actually find it pretty pretentious, and I don't need, five servers coming over and handing me a plate of food. I don't enjoy that stuff anymore. So he had booked us at a very bougie, fancy brunch place in Manhattan, and we were talking about it. And then I found out it was Mother's Day. I'm like, honey, there's no way that I want to go to this bougie, trendy, fancy brunch place on Mother's Day weekend in New York City. I'm like, it's overpriced and it's going to be crazy busy, and it's just not how I want to spend my time. We had a long conversation about it, actually. And, I assumed that he canceled the reservation. Well, we get to New York, and Coach Chef is asking us what we're doing, and we're walking along, and I'm like, oh honey, that looks like a great brunch spot, like this little corner cafe that has like a menu outside, and they had like some open air seating, like super casual. And he was like, oh, but we already have brunch reservations, remember? And I was like, honey, remember we canceled that? He's like, no, I thought we had a long conversation about it and how we decided to keep it and blah, blah, blah. And it just like immediately I said, it's so interesting how other people interpret a conversation. I assumed, based on our conversation, that he had canceled that reservation. And he assumed that we were still moving forward with it, even though both of us didn't say that explicitly, right? I didn't say, did you cancel the reservation, in that initial conversation, and he didn't say, I'm going to keep the reservation. But we assumed what we wanted would be the outcome, right? So I assumed that he was going to cancel that reservation. He assumed that he wasn't going to, that I wanted to go to the reservation. So it's like we each assumed what we wanted versus what the other person was trying to say. And so we just talked about that. Like, it's just so fascinating how we get it wrong, and we didn't turn into a fight or anything. It literally was fascinating that we each assumed something different, and we ended up not having the reservation. Anyway, what happened actually was the next day I was like, honey, I'm like, you have to cancel that reservation. Otherwise we could get charged. And so he looked at it. He's like, oh my God, I already canceled it. He forgot that he actually did cancel that reservation. It was so funny. The other assumption was, this is even a funnier story. We were going out for the day, and he said, I have this charger, and if you give me your cord, we'll have a charger with us when we're out and about if you want to charge your phone. I'm like, cool, I have one of those too. And I don't know if it has two outlets. I think it's a single use, but sure, I'll give you my cord and we'll take yours if you want to carry that. And so I gave him my cord, and it was this whole conversation about it. And then we were out all day, and lo and behold, I was like, oh honey, can I charge my phone, as we're walking through a museum? And he said, oh, well, why don't we stop and get lunch, and then we'll charge it? I go, well, we can charge it right now. And he's like, well, no, we can't, because I need an outlet. And I was like, what? I had assumed it was a mobile charger, like a charging box that you know what I mean? That you don't need to cord, like you know what those things are. I don't know what the exact term is, but it's a little charging cube where it's pre-charged and you plug your phone into it and it charges it on the go. He even showed it to me and it looked just like that. And then like as I'm like, I was like, what? I'm like, you need an outlet? I'm like, he's like, yeah. And he showed it to me. And I was like, honey, I'm like, I assumed when you asked that you meant like it was a mobile charger and that you didn't need to plug it in, like a wireless one. We just died laughing. Like here was another assumption. And so we started talking about these assumptions like throughout the weekend. And I was just blown away. Like nowadays, right? Like most people, if you travel any significant amount, have one of those mobile charging things. And I just like, for as much as he travels, I mean, he travels internationally way more than I do. And I had assumed that that's what he was talking about, right? And I think that's the benefit of the assumption is like, instead of me like needling him and like getting into the details, okay, I'm going to like my brain just wanted to assume that he meant a mobile charger instead of him like, let me see your charger. And are you sure it's a mobile charger? And how is that going to work? And like going through all of that, which could be painful and exhausting and unnecessary. My brain just skipped and assumed that it was a mobile charger. And it wasn't. So when we got to the restaurant, an hour later, we had to ask the server for an outlet and they had to take our phones away. And it was just, it was funny. All right. So that is story number 2. And then, but in the past, to back up here before I get into story number 3, in the past, if that would have happened before I have done so much work on managing my mind and understanding human behavior and all of that, I would have made that his fault. I would have been mad about that and we probably would have gotten in a fight. And I'm just so glad that I have so much more empathy now and like I understand people more now and I understand myself and how the only thing that happened there was a misunderstanding that I assumed it was a mobile charger. That was the only thing that went wrong. Like Pete's intentions were great. He offered to have a mobile, something that we could charge our phones with. He cared enough to ask me for my cord for it so that we could do, 2 phones at one time. The only thing that happened that went wrong was I assumed that he meant a mobile charger. Are you guys following me here? So like nobody did anything wrong here, but I would in the past would have made him wrong. And I would have been annoyed about that. And now I just laugh. I'm like, it's fascinating to me how everybody can have their own little internal dialogues about things and have a totally different experience and outcome even with 2 people having the exact same conversation. So the third story about assumptions is a little bit more intense. So Pete and I are walking through Central Park. We're getting ready to kind of like get our stuff and go. And we stopped because there was this amazing jazz quartet that was playing in Central Park, kind of in this idyllic setting. And it wasn't like a scheduled programmed event. It was just street performers, but they were very good. And, as soon as I heard them play, I was like, I want to support this kind of art and this kind of music in this location. So I just went up and I immediately put money in their box. And then I noticed Pete was like taking a video and stopping to listen to them. And so I came over and joined him, took a couple pictures. We were there watching them for probably 2 minutes. And then because I remembered keeping track of how long it was because I wanted to record a video that was under 1 minute long for Instagram. Okay. And so as soon as we were done with that, we just like, all right, let's go. And we start walking away and we hear, excuse me. And we turned around. They're like, if you're going to take video of a band, for 5 minutes, you should really tip them. And we both in unison said, we already did. And we had to like raise our voices because she was so loud. And then she goes, are you sure? And we're like, oh, we're sure. And then we just turned around and she turned around and walked away. We turned around and walked away. But because she didn't see us do something, she assumed that we didn't. Okay. It was wild to me because and the funny thing is that I agree with her 100%. And that's why I tip people. I have a rule that I follow, which I'm happy to follow, is if I'm going to enjoy music or a performance or something like that, even if it's like somebody on the subway that's like coming in there with their guitar or a boombox and they're doing some sort of performance, if I'm looking at them and I'm engaged with them at all, I'm going to give them money. And if I don't want to engage with them, and I don't want to give them money, then I don't. I look away. I don't engage. I'm not I'm not in it with them. But if I'm in it with them, I feel like I want to support them, right? Because I'm getting enjoyment out of it. So I'm 100% happy to tip, donate, all of that stuff when I hear art like that. And it's just so funny how she assumed just because she didn't see something that we were wrong, that we did something wrong. And she felt so passionate about that she had to chase us in the middle of Central Park and make a big old scene about it, right? Just because she assumed something. And she was so righteous in her assumption that she had to come after us and like make everybody else hear, that she was doing the right thing by saying, you should really tip if you're going to take video, which I agree. Will I ever chase anybody down in a public place over that? Absolutely not. There are so many different ways that you can go about doing that, which is a whole nother podcast topic. I think a lot of times, if you are very passionate about something, and you feel righteous, you're part of a movement, all sorts of things that people get involved with, you are going to get way more flies with honey than you are with hate, right? And so that was such a turnoff, right? Like how many other people walked away and didn't sit there and enjoy that music and then therefore didn't tip the band because of what she did, right? Everything has a cause and effect. And so she assumed that because she didn't see something that it didn't happen. And it just made me wonder how often we assume things about other people that we don't know. Right? Are you assuming somebody is thinking things about you? Are you assuming that, they've got these other intentions going on and without any sort of hard evidence? And when you make those assumptions and you're wrong about them, how that impacts you. So I think about this woman who chased us down and yelled at us. Like, how was that experience for her because of her assumption that was wrong? Right? So instead of sitting there and enjoying the music, she was hawkeyeing us, angry that we didn't tip. And so that ruined her experience, right? Are you guys following along? So I just wonder if you can think about that and you have made an assumption where you could be wrong, and that assumption ruined your experience for yourself. And then what did you do later or in that moment that also ruined your experience for yourself? So did you get really angry about something because of a story or an assumption that you've told yourself, and then you went and drank or ate or scrolled or avoided or caused an argument or bitched and moaned to people about it, right? Think about it. Is there any time recently that you've made assumptions and either you found out you were wrong or maybe you could be wrong because you didn't see the whole scene? Yeah. And it's just interesting, right? And like she didn't believe us when we told her anyway, right? She wanted to be right about that, which still kind of like is blowing my mind. Like, why do you want to be right about us not tipping the band? That does not serve you or anybody, right? I like to believe in the goodness of people, and that most people aren't out to take advantage of things or, take people's money or whatever it is. I want to believe that most people are good. And I believe that this woman had good intentions too. And we had the same belief system. It just shows up differently, right? I'm not chasing down people. I might have a sideline conversation, right? I might go about it differently in a more peaceful way. If I really was passionate about something, I might walk up to somebody and say, hey, I didn't see you tip. It's kind of a policy, it's sort of an unspoken rule that if you're enjoying music, that we tip for that. So just for next time, I don't know if you have cash on you or something. It would sound something like that, but I probably wouldn't even do that. But she really felt passionately about that. And so she made a big scene about it. And she's not wrong for doing that. It's just interesting. And I think about when I evaluate these situations, the assumption that she made that caused her way more pain and suffering, right? The energy in which she came at us was anger, right? And so she was with her own anger and her own thoughts and her own assumptions for a while, and probably even after. And then the impact of that energy that had in that space with those people and towards us who were trying to do the good thing, right? In our experience there in Central Park and the whole scene. So, are your assumptions helping you or are they hurting you? If you don't know, if you don't have actual facts, if it's not explicitly said, then you got to own that you're making assumptions here. And your brain has concluded something that it doesn't have all the details for, and that's a normal human function. It's just trying to save you time and energy and pain. And so if you find out that you've assumed something and you're wrong, you just want to laugh about it, you could apologize, do whatever you need to do. But also you can assume that this is happening with other people too. And we all have our own internal assumptions and beliefs and thoughts and the reasons why we do things the way we do. And to try to understand why people are doing what they're doing is helpful. It gives you more empathy, but the first step is understanding yourself and why you're doing what you're doing, right? If I hadn't done all the work on myself to learn about my own behavior and my own sources of pain and my own triggers and my own feelings and my thoughts and my judgments and my belief systems, if I hadn't consistently doing that work for myself over the past 6 years, I would not have had so much peace around these assumptions that happened this weekend in New York City. It helps you go through life easier when you do the work on yourself so that you can have empathy for other people, give them the benefit of the doubt, and understand that they're probably just coming from their own sources of pain and assumptions. All right, my friends, I would love to hear from you if you've made some assumptions that you're wrong about, that you want to fix, or if you want to stop assuming the worst case scenario in your fellow people. I'd love to hear it. Talk to y'all soon. Bye. Oh, hey, real quick, I forgot to mention, I have 2 spots left for my sober nature retreat in Seattle, Washington that's taking place at the end of July. The work for that retreat starts now. So we get private coaching together, you get small group coaching, you get a live AF access and more when you sign up now. And then by the time we get together at the end of July, you will have practiced and be in a really good place to go on vacation and do really fun and exciting and healing things with lots of relaxation and downtime, including a spa trip in Seattle with me at the end of the July. So go to the link in the show notes, check it out, and put your deposit down, and we can start right away. Talk soon. I want you to check out angelamascenik.com/aliveaf. You know what it's like to have a desire to cut back on your drinking, right? You start to read books, listen to podcasts, try things, but you might not be able to yet put all the pieces and suggestions together in a way that actually makes sense and works for you. You might struggle with beating yourself up after an overdrink. You might get frustrated with yourself when you take 2 steps forward and then another 2 steps back, and get overwhelmed with what's right and wrong about your relationship with alcohol. Your friends tell you that you should be able to have just 1 drink, and it isn't a big deal. You might be white-knuckling through urges and resisting instead of peacefully processing them. And you might struggle with your identity as someone who has enjoyed having a lot of wine or alcohol in your life. It's around you all of the time. It's what you do and who you are. Well, after 5 years of successfully coaching hundreds of women through these struggles, I have created the Alive AF membership, where women like you can learn the basics on what it takes to cut back and reach your goals with alcohol, whether it is to just drink less or totally quit. And when you join, you will get the exact framework I used to change my own relationship with alcohol and still use today that has led me to be alcohol-free for over 5 years. You're going to get access to my resources, videos, and worksheets that have been proven to change and reduce how much you drink. Every day you can ask questions, share your obstacles, and get coaching and direct support on the challenges you will face with love and no judgment. Also, you will get immediate access to workshops like uncovering your alcohol identity and changing it, how to say no to things that don't support your new identity or life or goals, aka boundaries, a workshop called Creating Emotional Agency, and another one, How to Manage Your Mind to Succeed at Your Goals, and more. Every month we have a brand new workshop. These workshops are filled with step-by-step prompts and instruction to help you create the exact relationship with alcohol that is best for you. My mission and vision for Alive AF is to be a hub of support and resources for women to come and learn how to do what is best for them and becoming more alive in the process. When you join, you're going to learn how to take care of yourself better, how to feel good and become more alive and go after the life that you really want. I want this membership to be affordable and an easy solution where you can get all the help you need in one simple place whenever you need it. So, no need to go read another book, find a new podcast, attend a free webinar, or go down the path of piecemealing it all together. Join Alive AF and have it all there in one place for you anytime you need it. So, go to angelamascenik.com/AliveAF and enrollment is open right now. See you inside.